And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
I am blessed, really. My favorite game is Cosmic Encounter. This game is almost as old as I am. Cosmic Encounter, originally produced by Eon, came with 10 aliens, and then they added, I believe there was 9 expansions. Each expansion added more aliens and added all kinds of weird stuff. Mayfair then reprinted it with weird stuff. Avalon Hill reprinted it later on underneath Hasbro's control. Wasn't nearly as nice. Well, it was a beautiful set, but they only had 10 aliens again, and I wanted to see more. Well, when Fantasy Flight came out with this one, it was amazing. This was enough to make anyone happy. The fact that there are now 5 expansions is unbelievable. Never expected more, and I said last year that if they never made another expansion, I would be completely content with this game. However, they did make an expansion, Cosmic Dominion. This is a fan-generated expansion in some ways. What they did is they had a contest and fans created aliens, and the Fantasy Flight team play-tested them, and they also brought back older aliens. And, well, let me show you what's inside the box, and we'll come back. I mean, obviously, I like the game and like this expansion, but what do I think about the expansion as a whole? Here we go. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is look at some of the aliens that come with this set. Now, the aliens that come with the set, as I said, are designed by, several of them are designed by fans of the game, and there was a contest, and they're really cool aliens. This is the only one I'm not a huge fan of, the Whirligig, mostly because you can kind of mix your hand up with their hand and give the cards back, which is kind of cool. And I mean, I don't dislike it, but I don't know that it really offers anything that interesting to the game. But that being said, they finally brought back the laser, the one that makes you pick blindly your encounter card, although they modified it basically so that it's not just one card picked randomly. But I'm glad the laser's back, and there's lots of cool ones, the Lizard, the Mirage. So I'm not going to show you every single one, although this one cracks me up, the tourists. They fly around in their own little tour ship, and they can have ships off that and visiting other people and setting up and taking over different planets. The Engineer is the first alien that's based on the technology cards that come in the original game, which is something kind of cool. You can use those even if you're not using technology. Quartermaster is one that cracks me up. He decides who gets what rewards. If you like variety, the Peniform is a cool. Essentially, you have a different power depending on how many foreign planets that you have. The Pickpocket steals cards. The Judge is another one of the old aliens that was from the originals way back when, brought back where he can change the outcomes of it. The Angler, I think, is funny because essentially he plays a game, Go Fish, in Cosmic Encounter. Do you have this card? No? Okay, then I'm drawing from the deck. And the Usurper. So now, let's go through my top 10 aliens from this set. And I'll tell you about 10 aliens that I really like. First of all, we have the Reactor here. Now, the Reactor gets to use other people's flares, puts them on the sheet, and if people ask you to fight and they win that encounter, you can give them their matching flare. Eventually, you'll be able to get your own flare into your hand, and then you can win. If your side wins an encounter and you have no other flares in your hand or on your sheet, you may use this flare to win the game. Now, that's not an easy task to do, and it really is interesting, but you'll see a lot more super flares being played when Reactor is in the game. Number 9 is the Bride. Hilarious how this one's set up because she can marry another player, and you know that you can ally with each other without being invited, but the biggest thing is you can divorce them and take half their cards as alimony. Now, you can only do that once per game for each player, but still, it's hilarious, but at the same time very useful. Number 8 is the Yin Yang, and I think the Yin Yang is essentially just really interesting because they can ally with both sides in a combat if they're invited. If they're not invited, you give them one of your Yin Yang tokens, thanks for not inviting me, and if each person who has a Yin Yang token will lose an equal number of ships as their opponent did. So very interesting. Something good happens to you, something bad happens to you. Number 7 is the Daredevil. I like him. You're trying to win, but you're trying to win with as little as possible. You can even discard a card between 1 and 8 to subtract from your total to get them as close as possible. If you win an encounter by 4 or less, then everyone on your side gets rewards as if they were defending. A pretty cool idea. Very much enjoy this one. Then we have the Aristocrat, who can pick his starting hand. Okay, he can't pick his own super flare, but other than that, he can pick his starting hand, and he can take flares from the flare deck and add one to his hand. If you're someone who loves flares, well, this set already has a few aliens, but this is the one that's really cool, the Aristocrat. Then we have Love. Love, the opposite of Hate. In fact, he's babysitting Hate there, if you see. Love can discard a card from their hand. Everyone else can discard the same type of card. So if I discard a reinforcement card, for example, everyone else can discard a reinforcement card. And if each person who does so will get back all their ships from the warp. If everybody does so, then Love's ships come back from the warp. But if one or more people don't, then Love gets all their ships out of the warp, and they get to put them on a planet. They get a foreign colony. Now, this seems really powerful, and it is, but fortunately, Love can't do it too many times in a row, and they have to get ships sent to the warp for this to happen. But still, this is a way to help others, and they hate it every second of you helping them. Ace. This is a game changer, guys. The Ace wins with one foreign colony, but it has to be at the beginning of your turn. So you have to survive for one whole round. And players can attack you, whether the Destiny card, if it lets them attack your color or the color that has that colony. So you be expected that if you're in a game, first of all, no one's ever going to ask you to be an offensive ally, ever. And people are going to be very wary and try to destroy you if you get any foreign colony at all. Certainly changes the game. I love these guys who change the game. The Joker. Now this is one of my favorites, obviously, because we are in the top 3 now. The Joker comes with a whole bunch of Joker tokens that you place on the card. Each of these Joker tokens matches one of the cards in the game. So you can see here, for example, this is a 42, 23, negotiate. What's that R? We'll talk about that in a second. 16, 15, and 8. At the beginning of the game, 8s are wild, but the Joker can change them at the beginning of his turn and say any card that's wild. If that card's played by either player, the Joker can replace that card with one of these chips. So that's really interesting because, first of all, you can help yourself out a lot, but you can also name a card you think your opponent might have. Like I could say, 20s are wild. Now I know my opponent won't play a 20 because if he does, I'm replacing it with the Negotiate. Entertaining, very fun, one of my favorite aliens. The Diplomat. Oh man, I love this guy. The Diplomat, when he's not the main player and he has a Negotiate card, he can play that and make it to be a 3-way negotiation between him and the other 2 players. Hilarious fun. You're coming in and you have a deal, but you're going to get something out of the deal also. But my favorite alien is the Greenhorn, or the Noob. This guy here has to show people a card from his hand each turn and ask a question about it. I guess that's just for theme's sake, like, what does this mean? You also give people kind of a look at what's in your hand. But other than that, whenever you don't have any attack cards, you draw a new hand. You can rearrange the ships on your colonies. You can play your kicker after encounter cards instead of before them. You can play reinforcements when you're not involved. You can play rifts and artifacts that are supposed to be played in specific phases anytime you want. And it's hilarious. He just breaks a lot of minor rules in the game because, well, he doesn't know what he's doing. Funny, and yet at the same time, very useful. The expansion also comes with a rewards deck. This was in the first Cosmic Encounter expansion, and this can be combined with that deck. I believe there's 64 cards in total now. These reward cards are cards that you can draw if you want to as a reward when you help someone defend. These really jump up the game, and while they have some normal cards in, like this +4 reinforcement, another morph card, and some of these rift cards that if somebody they get some of your ships back, but also can, if someone draws them from your hand when they're stealing a card, they kind of blow up. They're like time bombs. But it also adds the new Retreat card. This was one of the tokens on the Joker's card. The Retreat is essentially kind of like a Negotiate. You lose when you play the Retreat, but you simply get all your ships back. So does everyone on your side. So it's kind of very interesting. If it's opposed by a Negotiate, it turns into a Negotiate, or if it's opposed by a morph, it changes to a Negotiate. But I like these a lot. They add a little bit more flavor to the game. There's also these Intimidate cards. These are probably the most complicated cards. They're not really, they just seem that way. On my turn, I can, or when it's not my turn, when I'm an ally, I can play an Intimidate card and basically say to the person who's on my side, who I'm allying with, and say, hey, take this card. It's face down. Use this card instead of your encounter card. And he can do so. Now, you can use these as your encounter card if you're the main player. That's fine. So you can give your opponent either a -9, a 19, a 29, a 39, which are very powerful cards, except for the -9. But they don't know what you're giving them. You could be lying to them. I suppose you could tank your own side. It is an interesting way for allies to be involved in the battle. More kickers. I love kickers. Kickers are cards that you play face down before both players play their cards, and then it's multiplied by your cards. This one, though, multiplies by both people's cards, so multiplies both by -1. That can be very entertaining when they play the 40. This one here multiplies both by 1, but makes all ships destroyed. This one essentially ends the encounter. It's really annoying when you're not expecting it. This one here is plus ×2, but other kickers are canceled, and no one can play reinforcements. Another ×2. However, when your ally ships leave the hyperspace gate, they go to the warp. You're basically betraying your allies. And then there's a ×4. Wow, that's cool. Everyone hopes they get that one. There's also encounter cards that are two different numbers. They're 12 or 21. Some of the encounter cards have hazard symbols on them. They're not that easy to see. I wish they'd been easier to see. I'm almost thinking about marking my cards so they are easier to see. When a hazard symbol is showing, this is a 21, otherwise it's a 12. It's a 2 or a 20. It's a 3 or a 30, a 21 or a 12. These are okay. I don't know what that really matters. I mean, if it's a hazard warning, I don't know. The Destiny card, what does it matter if I have a 12 or 21? I mean, obviously the 21's better than the 12, but I don't see how your opponent cares. I don't know how to explain it. I just don't know that these matter that much. The card changes value, and that's just something you have to keep track of, but it doesn't make the game any cooler. I think they're just trying to justify those hazard symbols. There are some great negotiation cards in this one here. This one, if you do negotiate, you have to make the deal using only gestures. I love that. This one here, when you lose to somebody else with this negotiate, you will also blow up one of their ships for each ship you lose. In this one, you get double compensation, or you can prevent your ships from going to the warp. This one here, players have 1 minute, you lose, but you collect compensation. If you receive any cards from compensation or a deal, you may discard any of those cards. It's kind of, if you get cards and you don't like them, you can throw them out. This is the weakest of the new ones, but still. Then we come to the greatest cards ever, folks. The new artifact cards. The Victory Boon. This you play when you're the defender, and you get defender rewards even if it's your own planet. The question I'm asked in almost every game, what do I get for defending my own planet? My response is always, well, you get to live. You saved your people. Well, now you can play this card. But Rebirth, you can play this and take one of your planets back that's empty. That is huge, and it can give you your alien power back. Even better, Solar Wind reverses the rewards. The attackers, if they win, get defender rewards. The defenders, if they win, get a planet. Amazing. Ship Zap. This one's evil. You can play anytime and send one ship from anywhere and play. Knowing this card's in the game now will make you want to keep 2 ships on all foreign planets. And then the Omni Zap. The most powerful card in the game. Zaps anything. It can zap an artifact. It can zap an encounter card. It can zap. It's unbelievable. When you use it, you got to kill one of your ships from the game, or send 3 ships to the warp. But it's worth it. The Omni Zap, love it. Finally, we have these here. These basically make one of your ships special. You can take one of your ships, like here's one of my yellow ships. My ships are painted. And put this on top of it, and then it can be, you can play with rules. The 2 rules that this game comes with is the flagship variant and the salvage vessel variant. The flagship basically makes it a +3, and it can warp in. Whenever you use these ships, you flip it over to show that that ship's been used. And there's some other rules about these special ships. That's a kind of a cool thing. It's cool to have a flagship. I almost wish they had included like a special plastic piece rather than just this piece to put on top of it. It kind of gets hidden maybe. I mean, not with my ships that are painted, but even then it doesn't look that special. It's a cool idea though. I don't know how often I'll use it. Okay, first of all, I mean, it's really, to me, it's obvious that Cosmic Dominion is essentially a love letter to Cosmic Encounter fans. It really is. Because to someone like me, this is the best expansion they've done. By far. I love all the new aliens. There's a ton of aliens in here. How many aliens did they even come with? I didn't even count how many there were. 30 new aliens. That's crazy. The original game had 50, 30 more. It's insane the number of combinations. And all these aliens do really interesting things. I mean, really interesting. They're not like minor changes. Some of the aliens from previous sets they did some minor things. These are all aliens that I would be glad to play with. And some really, and they brought back some of my favorites. Glad to see the laser and the judge back. You know, that's neat. And some of the new aliens, I really enjoy that. I also like the rewards deck. The rewards deck is the one option that's come in the expansions that I always use. I never play Cosmic Encounter without the rewards deck. It is by far, to me, the coolest thing to add it, and now the rewards deck is even better with all these cards. Fantastic. I used to say, well, there's some good stuff in the rewards deck, and there's some okay stuff. Now there's great stuff. And the only reason you would want to draw from the original deck is because, well, your flares are in there, and also there's the 40. You might want to snag that and such. And get those cosmic zaps. But love the rewards deck. Love the new aliens. The new ships, they're okay, and the flagships thing. So this is a great one. Now, would I recommend this to someone who says, if I can only get one expansion, and I never understand why people say that, but if I can only get one expansion, which one would you recommend? I don't know if I'd recommend this to someone who's new to the game. First of all, I tell you to get one of the expansions that adds another color ship, because you want Cosmic with 6 players. 5 is okay, but 6 is great. Great. 5 is great, I'm sorry, but 6 is greater. But man, if you love Cosmic Encounter like me, if you're a diehard fan like me, run out now and get this. Don't wait for a Christmas present or something. Go get this. This is superb. It is amazing. It is wonderful, and I love it. Oh, I'll say it again. If they never make another expansion, I would be completely satisfied. Now, if they do, though, I'll be first in line. But if they never make an expansion, I'll be satisfied. But wow, this one's good. I have so much fun. Cosmic Encounter truly is the best game that's ever been designed, and Fantasy Flight has now almost doubled the goodness of any of the other versions of it. Whoa, amazing.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at DicetowerNetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Shut the door.